Good afternoon. It's my great pleasure to have this opportunity to give you a briefing on the construction of the Belt and Road and our progress on this front. 5 years ago, President Xi Jinping proposed the concept of building Belt and Road Economic Belt and 21st Century Maritime Silk Road. And that is what we call Belt and Road. 5 years on, Belt and Road has achieved tremendous achievement and which has exceeded our expectations. Over the past 5 years, we worked with countries along the Belt and Road, 105 countries and 29 international organizations. We signed 149 intergovernmental cooperation agreements to advance Belt and Road development, and we achieved widespread consensus. Over the past 5 years, we also worked with the countries along the Belt and Road for economic and trading cooperation and activities. And the trading volume has exceeded $6 trillion over the past 5 years. And over the past 5 years, the Chinese companies' investment has exceeded $86.5 billion in those countries in the region. And we also established over 80 economic and cooperation zones, which exceed with a value of $28 trillion. And we created a lot of jobs, and a number of important projects has been underway. Over the past 5 years, China-Europe freight trains increased from dozens. The number has increased from dozens of trains to over 300 trains. It's fair to say that the Belt and Road has achieved remarkable progress over the past 5 years. I think the reason for such success is because the Chinese President Xi Jinping is the pioneer, and he took the initiative to promote its development. And in the meantime, innovation holds the key to the success of the Belt and Road. And we believe that there are two factors that is very important to innovation. First, we need to innovate the concept of the joint construction of Belt and Road. We need to be sincere, we need to be inclusive, we need to be peaceful, and we need to ensure stability and common prosperity. And it's also about a mutual benefit. And in this process, we have reached agreement on the principle of the Belt and Road, which is to achieve shared progress through joint discussion and cooperation. And we need to ensure policy connections between governments, between countries. We need to carry out consultations among the government, and we need to create convenience for the business interactions and trading activities. And meanwhile, we need to ensure infrastructure connectivity and trading and capital and people-to-people exchanges. So all these concepts and notions have been very popular and new in China's interaction with other countries. This is a major innovation. It's because of such innovation that we can achieve such success. The second part of innovation is institutional innovation. In the joint construction of Belt and Road, we first need to reach consensus on the policy. We signed a number of agreements on cooperation so that countries can plan together and work together for the development. And then they can carry out project implementation. So we can practically implement this project on the ground and achieve success. We believe with the deepening of the Belt and Road as time passes by, the Belt and Road will be a major contributor to China's reform and opening up. It will also be a major contribution to the human civilization. We will continue to work on this project. Thank you.
Chairman He, you made a very important speech about the current status and the achievements of the One Belt, One Road and how important innovation is. As a matter of fact, the whole idea of One Belt, One Road is innovation itself. And I think in this process, we need all kinds of innovation in all shapes and colors to make sure that One Belt, One Road initiative will move forward and will create benefit for all the participating countries. And we here have on the stage the head of state of Latvia, a very important Baltic country, a very important European country, and Latvia itself is in a very important geographical position as far as the One Belt, One Road initiative is concerned. Just now, I heard that President of Latvia and Chairman He Lifeng talked about their meetings before in Riga when Chairman He cut the ribbon for the first China-European train terminating in Riga, carrying a full load of cargoes directly from EU-China all the way to Riga. So we know that Riga and Latvia are very much involved in the One Belt, One Road initiative, and we need great ideas from all the participating countries, including from Latvia. So we have the great pleasure of listening to what the President of Latvia has to say. Thank you. The floor is yours, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. I would like to add what already moderator said. The Latvia is an important country, but not only important because Latvia is also a very dynamic and technologically developed country. And of course, it is a question, why do Latvia must participate in this initiative? I would like to answer very philosophically because I think it will be maybe easier to understand why it is so important for small, very far located country. Okay, only one country between us, Russia, but it's really a huge country. But of course, I see from Latvian perspective, I would like to mention three issues. And I think that these three issues also is very related to the topic what we today discuss. First of all, everywhere we have different infrastructure, and of course building and maintaining both physical and digital infrastructure is very, very important. But I would like to say that even more important is an efficient use of this infrastructure. Why? We all have this infrastructure or we develop a new one, but I think we must think how to create new services based on this infrastructure, and also how we give opportunities for more closer cooperation between different branches of economy, between different countries. Second issue, of course, everybody is interested that all these technologies are available for a very broad audience, and we are working with the issue how to develop digital literacy. Of course, it is very important, but in the same time, even more important is how to encourage government agencies, services, and also private business to effectively use new technologies, new possibilities of these technologies for day-to-day life, and of course for improving the well-being of our society. And third important issue is we are speaking that any connection, first of all, it is exchange of goods, services. Of course, exchange of goods and services is very important. But I think more important is exchange of knowledge, exchange of culture, exchange of different ideas. And if you try to think on this question from other angle through these three issues, I think it gives more basis for further development. And really, I see also these three issues as a key issue to the balanced and inclusive development of new Silk Road. In our case, in Latvia case, why for us it is important, and the moderator already mentioned about this fast cargo to Latvia. No, it's more. Not only one, but it's more. But we are still working on that. For us, it is important, these connections between China and Latvia, that we have a lot of advantages. For example, we have unfreezing ports linked to a railway network. We have rapidly growing air transportation hub in Riga. We start to construct new multi-billion project Rail Baltica, connecting all three Baltic countries with Western Europe. And of course, we have this infrastructure, but we must think what to do else. And it is the reason why we see that all this infrastructure is excellent basis for the development, a center of logistics excellence. What means excellence in this case, especially in logistics? I think it means adding value to the top of what we already have. I think it's really very important for any project. Of course, when we speak about these connections, it's also very important another infrastructure like internet connections, and in our country we have one of the fastest speed digital infrastructure, good digital literacy, and many other things connected to this service. It means we always can find in any project more wider another angle how to use this project for reaching new goals. But anyway, the new goal is, and the goal for every country, it doesn't matter Latvia or China or any other country, small or big one. It is prosperity of our societies, prosperity and development of our countries. And I think from this angle, we can develop any project and we will succeed good results.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Latvia is a great country and it's a very important country. I've been to Latvia many times. And I would say the best days for Latvia are yet to come. Whenever you travel in
we already have
Baltic countries, there is at least discussion of major connectivity projects linking Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania together. Also building a bridge or a tunnel linking with Finland, and then going south, connecting with Poland and Germany and Italy. So I would say with a great connectivity for Latvia and the Baltic countries, it will be very much complementary to what the whole idea of Belt and Road Initiative is all about. And we need innovation. We need new idea, new paradigm, and new initiatives. So think big for Latvia. Now, we would give the floor to Executive Deputy Mayor of Tianjin, our whole city today, Mr. Wenkui, for a speech. In the morning, we listened to the Premier's speech. We also listened to the opening remarks by the Mayor of Tianjin. Now, we have the pleasure of listening to you, Sun 市长，请您发表高见。
Please, Mayor Sun, distinguished guests, good afternoon. I've listened very carefully to Chairman He and President Raymond's, and I've got a lot of information from their presentations. The Belt and Road Initiative is an important initiative proposed by President Xi with great results in the past 5 years. This was covered very comprehensively by Chairman He in terms of the achievements and results. Not long ago, President Xi further proposed that Belt and Road Initiative is an initiative of peace, prosperity, openness, green, and innovation, as well as civilization. This gives advice in terms of the cascading implementation of Belt and Road Initiative. For our government, we've been working very hard on this in terms of the deployment and the initiative of the government, and we've convened many meetings in terms of the implementation and deployment with action plans. And with 6 specific planning projects, which has their committees. And every year we have bulletin points for the work achieved and to achieve. This is under the guidance of NDRC and Chairman He each time. For our Tianjin municipal government, for us, we think that for the Belt and Road Initiative, we need to play to the geographic advantages and other kinds of advantages of Tianjin, and at the same time, we also need to make full use of this historical opportunities and time window and improve the development of Tianjin ourselves. The reason I'm saying this is that in the development of Belt and Road Initiative, there are some special, unique advantages, geographic locations, geographic advantages that we can make full use of. Tianjin is in the eastern beginning of the China-Russian corridor, and in the Euro-Asia economic corridor, we're also an important node on it. And also, for us, Tianjin, the 21st century maritime Silk Road and the economic road, Silk Road, the interactions on the land and on the sea. We are also the interjection. So if you look at our geographic locations, it's got its advantages. That's why we think we can use our advantage in the work of implementing the Belt and Road Initiative. In the past several years, under the leadership of the government of the Communist Party of the NDRC, and we've got members of the leadership, and including Chairman He, in guiding and helping us to implement our plans. And more specifically, the goal is for us to make full use of 4 points advantages we have. The first is our ports. The Tianjin port is one of the coastal ports that have the most comprehensive functions and is a pivotal point in the northern part in terms of shipping. So this is the positioning given by the central government for Tianjin. Among 180 countries, there are 500 ports, and we have interactions with them. So for the next phase, which we are now working on, is to increase the overall environment and services we provide from the ports, from the Tianjin port. That is port-related services to increase efficiency and to lower the cost, to make the customs services more smooth, so that the Tianjin port will be more friendly. Because Tianjin port is not only limited to Tianjin, its importance is beyond Tianjin to the northern part of China, to Tianjin, to the bigger area of Tianjin, Beijing, and Hebei province. And the efficient operation of Tianjin port will lower the overall cost of shipping. So if we'll be able to increase our efficiency to the world-class level, and if the smart manufacturing, for example, our smart operation will also be at the world class, then it will create many opportunities, and especially so in the Belt and Road Initiative. We hope we will play a leading role in the Belt and Road Initiative. Second, our industries. The central government has made a directive that we are the incubator, or we are the base to incubate, to nurture the next generation manufacturers in China. We are upgrading the traditional industries, and we are also investing in AI, in medical industry, and other strategically important industries in China. Now, in terms of international cooperation, there are many opportunities. For the first half of this year, the investment related to Tianjin was about $100 million. Import-export exceeded to 100 billion RMB. And next step, we're able to create more opportunities. And the third point is openness, so that we'll have a upgraded version of free trade zone. For the coastal area of Binhai Sea, we'll have an upgraded version that is under the guidance of Chairman He. We've got a document of policies, so with which we'll be able to build our free trade zone, so that it will be more open in the future and to facilitate investment, international trade. And it can also help with the internationalization of R&D and financial reform, with which the cross-border e-commerce business, for example, industrial park construction, for example, all of these will be done better and faster based on the free trade zone, so that Tianjin will be one of the leading areas in terms of reform and opening up, especially related to Belt and Road Initiative. And the fourth point is education, our advantages in education. Tianjin has our own unique advantage. Chairman He talked about professional, skilled worker education. It was mentioned several times here that education is very important in terms of innovation, especially so the education of skilled workers is very important and relevant under this topic. And we want to be the pilot base for skilled worker education. So next stage, we have several projects of major infrastructure, and that needs talent, people of talents. We have 5 workshops. Basically, what it means that with the 5 workshops, we'll be able to nurture skilled workers who understand China-specific skills, manufacturing, and standards. And we'll have another 5 by 2020. We have 81 Confucius Institute and classrooms. We have 10,000 international students studying here. So this exchange of culture and education is growing very vibrant. So the above mentioned 4 points are the things that we are going to do. We are going to play by our advantages and make our due contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mayor Sun. We also want to thank Tianjin Municipal Government for your great support and your preparation for WEF. And just now, Mayor Sun mentioned that Tianjin is not only the port of Tianjin, but also the port of China. It's also the port of Belt and Road. I have approached Mongolia and Kazakhstan and countries and use Tianjin port as one of your access to the ocean. So I think Tianjin holds an important position in the Belt and Road Initiative. And next, we
of asking Mr. Charles Lee, the CEO of Hong Kong Stock Exchange, to make his remarks. Charles Lee is a very distinguished. He has been the CEO of Hong Kong Stock Exchange for many years. And by the way, Hong Kong Stock Exchange is a very important international financial center. And I would say in the overall context, the One Belt, One Road can play an indispensable role for the financing of many corporates, institutions, and entities within the One Belt, One Road framework. And I have the pleasure of knowing Charles Lee for many years, and it's a great pleasure to give the floor to you, Charles. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. 谢谢
thank you, dear friends. Thank you, Chairman He. And today I want to talk about the financing innovation of Belt and Road. We know right now we've discussed a lot of Belt and Road. We need to spend a lot of money. It's easy for investment. But how about recovery? And financing is about getting returns. And I think financing is also one of the bottlenecks of the Belt and Road. And how do we recover the loans? Because the money recovery is much more difficult. Belt and Road is not Marshall's Plan, because Marshall's Plan is about rebuilding Europe, but Belt and Road is about common development, common construction, and common prosperity. So actually, this is a seed money. We hope the Belt and Road money can be the driver for future development. Therefore, we need to take a very holistic attitude towards our financing in order to ensure that we can generate more money and revenue. So I think without the financial return, it's impossible to ensure sustainable development. So what kind of financing, what kind of money shall we offer? How do we establish an innovation model to ensure the continuous spending can generate continuous recovery? So this is something we have to think about. So the money from China and the money from the other countries, also the money from the government and money from the private sector, money from SOE or money from private enterprises, and also the money from the government and from the private players. So in the beginning of Belt and Road, I think this is the national strategy, which means that the nation should offer the money first, which is followed by the private sector investment. But when we talk about the sequence and order of financing, we mean that the money from the government and SOEs can suffer losses in the beginning, because this is a national strategy. We need to sustain the losses. But the precondition is that more money from the private sector, from the from the international community will follow, because only with continuous money flow can we ensure sustainability. So it's just like we have to have a very sharp tool in order to cut the trees. So the money from government alone, the money from SOEs alone cannot solve the problem. It has to be coupled with other financial streams. So if the government money suffered losses in the beginning, we need to ensure that other financial sources will follow to make up for the deficiency, to make up for the shortage of money. So whether we issue bond or other security product, we need to we need to ensure that there is tremendous potential, and we do have tremendous potential. And building airport, building roads will not generate money, but we cannot tolerate that the money is never returned. Therefore, we need to ensure that we have a follow-up of more financial, sources. And this is also not enough. And the money from the government, the private sector, SOEs, and international community, we also have the money from the stock market and also from the equity market. If you borrow the money, you need to repay, right? But if you build the airport, you never get the money back. But if you do equity investment, you get returns. Of course, for the poor countries, we can provide financial assistance. But with the countries that already has the asset at the market, we need to motivate and also allocate their resources and their equity resources in order to support the debt. So this can work. And the money from AIIB and the money from the government can work without collateral. But for the follow-up financial sources, there needs to be guarantee, either in the form of a national guarantee or in the form of equities. And how do we resolve the equity? And for the equity, I think we can have a SOEs investment and investment, private investment, etc. So we need to have all these factors combined. So the money from the national government and from SOEs are very important. And the money from the market and from the private sector is also vital. They're like concrete. They're like cement. Without cement and concrete and steel, the building cannot be built. So the stones, rocks, and cement provide the rigidness of a building. And equity and debt is also work in the same way. So we have to combine the different factors. And in the meantime, we need to think about the interest of the recipient of the investment. We need to bundle the interest together. Of course, everyone will welcome infrastructure investment. But after the infrastructure is built, no one wants to repay. Everyone wants to have a free meal, because we are not talking about Marshall's Plan. Of course, some countries, they have the resources. And we need to ensure that resources can be viewed as valuable security so that these countries rich in resources can be bundled with the interest, because they want this equity value to rise, and they can use the value of the equity to offset the debt. So with faster rising stock prices, equity prices, and they want to repay the money as soon as possible. And then they can then they can build more roads and infrastructures, so we can have a rising prices of the equity value. So we have to ensure that these equities can be converted into valuable things. For example, we have a gold mine, which is very valuable, but what if tomorrow the license is canceled, so you are forbidden to open the mines? So we need to ensure that the interest is bundled. So which means that we will allow the equity to be listed on the stock market, and they will become the big shareholder, and then they can use the financing to build the oil field or some other things. So they own this equity, and they will discover more mines, and they will drink more oil fields, and then they can get more money, which can be put into infrastructure construction. So how do we put together the money from the government, the enterprises, and also the private sector, so that we can underscore the value of the equities? And I think China has a very good understanding of this factor. So this concrete and this cement and this steels need to all be put together in order to build a robust building. And Hong Kong is a very good platform. In fact, we do want to promote Hong Kong as a financial platform, but this is indeed a very good platform. Actually, under the general law, different countries can, put their asset in the market and also get listed. But I think the Chinese people may not feel comfortable if these assets are getting listed in other countries, but we can feel comfortable if we can put these resources in Hong Kong market. So by putting the asset there, I think their value will rise, and then they can offset their debt, and they can build more airport and infrastructure. This is a virtuous cycle and resolve the financing bottleneck and barriers, just like President Xi mentioned. So having heard his remarks, we are thinking about how to get listed in the market. Whether can we succeed? And we need to think about it carefully. So Charles Lee is well seasoned in the financial market, and I think the biggest dream of many entrepreneurs is to get listed in Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Also, time is limited. We have 2 more speakers to go. Now let's welcome Matthew De Morgan to give a speech. His company is called Duferco. I asked him, is it a Swiss company or what? He said, we are a Swiss, our headquarters is in Switzerland. And he was born in South Africa. He's a UK citizen. And their company operates in over 100 countries. And they are a steel producer, manufacturer, and processor and trader. And over 51% of this stake was sold to Hebei-based steel plants. So I think this is a very interesting company that is in close association with Belt and Road, because with success in Belt and Road, everyone can be the winner. This is not a zero-sum game.
Matthew, to give the floor to you to talk about your company and how is it a relevant case for Duferco to be 51% controlled by Hebei Steel. Our time is short, 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Okay, the clock has started. The problem with being the 5th speaker on a panel of esteemed experts is finding something interesting to say, because I think a lot of it has been said. But perhaps I can frame Belt Road through the perspective and the lens of a company which is active and heavily active in the Belt Road countries with a joint venture with the Chinese SOE. So let me just quickly give you a summary of who we are and our relationship with China, and then I can perhaps more intelligently discuss Belt Road. We are the world's largest steel trading company. We're also one of the world's largest steel distributors and processors. And we also own 2 industrial assets. And we have joint ventures with sovereign entities in China, in Saudi Arabia, and in South Africa. Currently, we operate in 55 of the nominated Belt Road countries, and have done so for 30 years. So before it was Belt Road, for us it was business. So we have a good understanding, I think, of operating in these countries. I decided in 2007 to align ourselves with mining-intensive and energy-intensive economies to act as a proxy for China growth. So we became strong in South Central America, Central and Eastern Europe. We're in Europe and North America as a pre-existing business model, and in Sub-Saharan Africa, in particular South Africa. So our model was actually predicated on China growth. We didn't intend ultimately aligning ourselves with China through investment, but rather through trade, and that's an important theme. But ultimately, in 2013, we entered into an equity deal with this Chinese SOE called Hebei Iron and Steel Corporation, which at that time was the biggest steel producer in China. And that, as Victor already pointed out, went to a 51% shareholding in 2015. The business is managed by the existing management team, and we are partners in the business with Hebei Iron and Steel. Okay, so that's who we are, and I'm not trying to advertise our business, but I am trying to give you a flavor and the context to my comments that are going to follow. I wrote notes as you went through, and if I can start with Chairman He, one of his comments was the importance of people to people and the fact you described it as an innovation. This is singularly the most important, for me anyway, the most important bridge and the most important connection for a successful implementation of Belt Road. As Charles said, Belt Road, it's huge. It's compared to the Marshall Plan. I mean, in fact, in US dollars, in today's dollars, it's already spent more than the Marshall Plan did in the 1940s and 50s. But it is not an aid project. Now, implementing these projects successfully and ensuring a return on the investment over and above identifying the right projects, which is key, and to go to President Raymond, if I may, he mentioned, in one mention, he talked about infrastructure, but the importance of using the infrastructure, whether it be hard or soft. Assuming those two criteria are met, how do you implement this project successfully? And the platitudes of Belt and Road sound great. The complexity of delivering it is super difficult. And it's what we do, so clearly I'm selling that. But managing the cultural differences, managing and integrating with local societies, and for the China business in a short time to go from a trade-related relationship with the world to an investment-related relationship, which includes social responsibilities, et cetera, and integration and making a cultural change to the approach and management. That's, I think, one of the trickiest parts of this process. And what Hebei recognized, at least in us, was that we brought the soft skills, the management skills, the presence on the ground, as well as having a good business model and good systems to help them deliver on this premise. The other important, and maybe it's obvious, but I'm not sure it is always obvious, Belt Road has to be a two-way street. You know, we cannot, and I'm perceived as a Chinese, under law, I'm a Chinese-owned majority company, so I have to look at CFIUS very carefully and all the various challenges in terms of investing. And there is a lot of work to be done for us as a Chinese partnership to ensure that our intentions are understood correctly, that the investment is considered to be benign. I go back again to Chairman He's comment about that this must be for the greater good. And that, finally, what Charles said, and being a shareholder in this business, it's got to make money. And you can achieve those, and there is an intersection of those various interests, not always. You have to be selective in your projects, but it is doable. So I think in summary, and I'm going to try and restrict your 5 minutes here, in summary, this is an incredibly interesting project. I mean, $1.3 trillion of expenditure expected to go towards infrastructure. I again go back to Charles. He's absolutely right. You need to bring in, probably even at the inception stage, not before, third-party funding, whether it be sovereign, whether it be infrastructure, long-dated funds, whether it be stock market funding. But I think having joint venture funding and joint venture projects, the chance of checks and balances and return on equity and implementation will be higher, and the chance of making a success of it will be higher. Because everyone will have a vested interest to make sure it succeeds. And risk management. You know, I'm not saying this as a platitude, and I'm not saying this to be polite to our Chinese host or my Chinese shareholders. I have a duty as a shareholder and a partner to make sure that we deploy the funds correctly and to the best of our ability. And China, you know, has substantial foreign reserves, and those $3 trillion should be deployed sensibly and to the greater good of the Chinese people and for the beneficiaries. And all I'm really saying is, from someone who's doing it day to day on the ground, and we've made a number of investments under the Belt Road banner, it's more difficult than it looks. And a lot of time and attention has to be spent on the detail, because that's where you save your money. And return of investment is important as return on investment. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and pass the floor back to you, Victor.
Thank you, Matthew. Really good. I hope we will understand this case study more, and I hope international media will also follow this case study, which, in my view, demonstrates the win-win possibilities of working with the One Belt, One Road initiative. Thank you, Mr. Matthew. Last but not least, we have the great pleasure to invite Mr. Joachim von Amsberg, who is the Vice President in charge of policy and strategy of AIIB. We know, and I think you will agree with me, AIIB is really an institution of wonder. And the speed of growth and the degree of being welcomed very enthusiastically, with the only exception of the United States right now, and possibly Japan, which I believe is getting closer and closer to AIIB, demonstrates that there is a need for new way of financing, and there is a need to address connectivity and infrastructure projects, which will become enabler for the fight against poverty and for the fight for greater development. So, without further ado, Mr. Amsberg, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you for this very kind welcome to AIIB. You asked, what can innovation do to bring about broad-based development and benefits to the Belt and Road countries? And I just thought I'd touch on 5 areas where innovation creates opportunities for the Belt and Road countries in terms of their economic development. And I want to talk about first energy, 2 cities, 3 finance, 4 national institutions, and then 5 multilateral institutions. I'll try to do 1 minute each. Very brief comments on 5 very complex issues. Energy, we have in many of the different sessions of this event talked about the ongoing energy transition. Belt and Road countries face the same challenge as other countries, meeting the energy needs of their people, their businesses, while decarbonizing their economies to make energy systems compatible with the Paris Agreement and global commitments. Now, new technologies, cost reduction in renewable energies create the opportunity to reconcile the tension and achieve sustainable energy for all. Both China and India have shown how to invest in renewable energy at scale. Connectivity of power grids across Belt and Road countries would be one example for how to increase the ability of power grids to absorb and increase the share of renewable energies. So a huge opportunity to leapfrog and build sustainable energy systems for all in the Belt and Road countries. Number 2, cities. 1 million people move to cities every week. That's about 1 new Hong Kong every 2 months. Now, there won't be another Hong Kong every 2 months because there is not the investment that is required to create the quality of life of Hong Kong. Instead, people will move to slums and informal settlements. So investing in cities in the emerging and developing world, investing in spatial planning that allows orderly growth of these cities, environmentally sustainable growth of these cities, livable cities, is the second big challenge and opportunity that Belt and Road countries face. Again, China, but also other countries in the region, certainly Singapore, but many other countries have models of how to plan ahead, invest ahead, and actually create sustainable, livable cities to deal with this challenge of tremendous magnitude. Third, finance. We talk about trillions of dollars of investment needs in infrastructure alone. Public resources, even under the ambitious plans of Belt and Road, are not going to be sufficient to meet all these investment needs. We've heard a lot and we know about the trillions of dollars of investable funds that are held by institutional investors that are in principle interested in investing in emerging markets. In practice, however, very little of that money is flowing. The question is, are there innovations out there that can help unlock the institutional investors' willingness and ability to invest in profitable projects, in infrastructure, in developing emerging countries? And just to mention one innovation, building on earlier experience in China, today countries from India, Singapore, Hong Kong are experimenting with ideas to take operating infrastructure assets, operating toll roads, operating power plants that have a cash flow, pool them, securitize them, or provide some other enhancement and sell these assets to institutional investors. That frees up capital on the balance sheets of commercial banks who are much better placed to invest in greenfield investments in new toll roads, new power plants. Just to give an example of one innovation where learning across countries can really help unlock the opportunity for broad-based investment in infrastructure. Fourth, national institutions. That's about governments and other institutions that are so critical to take decisions to invest and make policies that reflect and represent the public interest. Absolutely essential for any public policy, in particular infrastructure investment. Now, technology is changing the nature of governments, governance, and institutions. Just yesterday, I spoke to a minister from a country who has introduced IT technology to dramatically transform the service delivery in his country, to be able to cut waste and corruption in the delivery of roads, water services by a multiple and achieve universal coverage in many services. On the other hand, in other parts of the world, we know that technology can lead to control and manipulation and actually deteriorate the quality of governments and governance. So again, the opportunity, but also the challenge to use technology to create better government and better governance. Fifth and lastly, and that comes to my own organization, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, multilateral institutions. AIIB was initiated by China. 57 countries joined to establish AIIB in 2015 as a new multilateral organization to invest in infrastructure in Asia. Two basic principles were enshrined in the constitution of AIIB. One, transparent multilateral governance, clear rules, clear institutional arrangements, clear division of responsibilities so that every country that is a member of AIIB has a voice and has clarity about its roles and transparency and access to information. Absolutely essential for effective multilateral cooperation, that transparent governance. Secondly, international project standards. Adequate financial returns of projects, adequate economic returns, social, environmental standards, and governance standards that prevent corruption. Those project standards are the bedrock of multilateral finance. And these basic principles have allowed us to attract 30 more member countries. Today we're 87 member countries. They include most of the Belt and Road Initiative countries. The involvement of multilateral financial institutions in projects, for example, Belt and Road projects, ensures both that multilateral governance and transparency and the quality of projects in terms of adherence to economic, financial, social, environment, and governance standards. So even though we're still a very small organization with very modest investments, we really hope that we can contribute to turning Belt and Road, using the opportunities that I spoke about, into broad-based economic development and therefore benefit for all people in all our member countries, which includes most Belt and Road countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amsberg. Let's wish AIIB a greater success, and let's also see how AIIB can coordinate its work and play a very important and innovative role in the unfolding of the One Belt, One Road initiative. I'm sure there will be lots of things that AIIB can work with for the benefit of all the participating countries of the One Belt, One Road initiative. We actually also have many requests from medias to ask questions for this very distinguished panel. Unfortunately, time is short. We have questions raised from Xinhua News Agency, China Daily, for example, and People's Daily, 经济导报, etc. However, I don't think we have enough time for this panel, and we would like to have your questions recognized, and hopefully the organizers can find a way to address your questions. And ladies and gentlemen, please applaud once again for this wonderful panel, especially Chairman He and the President of Latvia, and Vice Mayor Sun of Tianjin, and Charles Lee, my old friend of Hong Kong Stock Exchange, Matthew, and Mr. Amsberg. Thank you very much. Yes.